Discover the touching moment a little girl asks for a puppy. He the CEO who fired her mom. Lily stared out her window, watching the joy radiate from other kids in the neighborhood as they chased after their pets. In her heart, a longing stirred, more impactful than the shifting winds outside. A puppy, her fluffy companion, could transform this challenging time into a vibrant garden of laughter and comfort. Yet, as her mother Sarah moved about the house, worry clouded her features like low-hanging storm clouds. The quiet echoes of financial strain and emotional exhaustion wrapped around Lily, though she didn't fully understand the weight they carried. "Can we get a puppy, Mom? How about today?" she asked, her voice innocent and hopeful as it danced through the air. "Not now, sweetheart. Maybe later," Sarah replied, her heart heavy with responsibility. Just days ago, she'd lost her job at the tech company, and the new realities of bills piling up loomed overhead. Each passing minute deepened the knot in Sarah's stomach. She once thrived in her role, driven and ambitious, but now she felt adrift, losing touch with her ambitions while balancing the overwhelming pressures of motherhood. How could she even think of adding a puppy to their already stretched lives? Yet, in her daughter's bright eyes, she detected the shimmer of dreams that begged for a nurturing touch. Meanwhile, in a glitzy office far removed from Lily's simplicity, CEO Michael wrestled with the aftermath of his company's ruthless decisions. Surrounded by sleek furniture and tech gadgets, he felt the emptiness of his achievements echoing in the space. A seep of unease filled him as he reflected on the faces of employees affected by layoffs, employees like Sarah. Caught between ambition and a sense of moral responsibility, he hesitated, and for the first time, he questioned the very fabric of corporate greed that had driven his recent choices. That evening, at a lavish charity event, the air buzzed with laughter and clinking glasses. Dressed sharply, Michael held a drink but found himself distant, each sip tasting bitter against the backdrop of his unraveling conscience. While perusing various tables, his eyes fell upon a letter, a child's scrawl pleading for hope, and a puppy, an ordinary request laced with profound feelings. It was from Lily. He read on, recognizing the glowing dreams woven through her innocent writing, the yearning for companionship and the profound desire for her family to see joy again. Each word hit like a wave against the rocks of his hardened heart. "Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As Lily dreamt of frolicking in fields with her new furry friend, Michael felt the tension unfold within him, an internal battle blooming like wildflowers against a desolate backdrop. The contrast was stark. Lily's simple wish contrasted sharply with his complex business maneuvers. He was beginning to realize that success should perhaps be redefined, yet the conflicting voices in his mind pushed back, reminding him of the shareholders and the company's quarterly performance. An unexpected anger bubbled up as he contemplated the hurt inflicted on innocent families, his own heart echoing the pain of Lily's letter. She was blissfully unaware of the chaos swirling around her, but the moment seemed to point toward something larger, that his actions could bear the weight of redemption. When their worlds finally met, it wouldn't just pivot on puppy dreams, it would be the defining moment pushing them all towards something irrevocably transformative. Would he have the courage to confront his complacency, or would he shrink back into the shadows of corporate existence? The tension hung thick, ready to burst, just as the sun dipped below the horizon, leaving only silhouettes and questions in its wake. The morning light sliced through the curtains, casting hopeful shadows across Lily's bedroom, but her heart felt heavy. She clutched her stuffed bunny, a relic from better days when carefree laughter and playful adventures defined her existence. Each morning, she awoke to the same ache. The absence of a puppy was now a constant reminder of her family's struggles, echoing her mother's quiet sorrow. Meanwhile, Sarah's new routine had settled into a rhythm of worry and resilience. She spent hours each day scouring job boards, fueled by determination yet tormented by self-doubt. The thought of her daughter's sparkling eyes filled with joy steered her towards hope, yet a puppy would require financial sacrifice she couldn't justify. Doubting her ability to provide, Sarah tossed and turned in an endless loop of what-ifs. What if she failed to find work? What if she couldn't fulfill her daughter's simple wish? In the sterile confines of the corporate world, Michael wrestled with his conscience like a storm-tossed sailor. The letter from Lily lingered in his mind, buoying a sense of purpose he had long abandoned. He spent hours reflecting, oscillating between his identity as a ruthless CEO and a responsible leader. The voices of disgruntled employees echoed in his ears, weaving a narrative of loss and regret. What good was profit if it cost them their humanity? The question haunted him through meetings and phone calls. Each time he returned to his desk, his gaze would drift to that same letter, its sincerity drawing him closer to the edge of action. He had been so consumed by numbers, KPIs, and market performance that he had forgotten the faces behind the statistics, the very people who were depending on his decisions. How could he reconcile his ambitions with the ever-increasing cost of those ambitions? Determined to make a change, Michael decided to reach out to Sarah. Could he potentially offer her a new job, or perhaps a chance to just have a conversation? He questioned whether his gesturing towards redemption could ease the burden he unknowingly placed on the shoulders of others. He envisioned a meeting. Vulgar dreams of corporate hubris sat juxtaposed to a single mother looking for a lifeline. But how would she take his overtures? Would she see it as a hollow gesture or a sincere attempt to right a wrong? As he dialed her number, heartbeat racing, the gravity of his choice pressed in. The line rang, the phone's soft tone creating a rhythm of anticipation and apprehension. What was he to say? That he wanted to help, to bridge the divide between their two worlds. But would it come across as patronizing? How could he offer a puppy to Lily, a symbol of compassion, while still attending to the complexities of his corporate matrix? After several rings, he heard a soft voice on the line. "Hello. Sarah, this is Michael," he started, the weight of his own name feeling foreign in his mouth. The silence folded around him like a thick fog, each second ticked by with uncertainty. "I'd like to talk." In that moment, an unspoken pact lingered in the air. Both were poised at the crossroads of change. Sarah on the verge of potential opportunity, and Michael faced with a chance for redemption. Just as Michael summoned the courage to articulate his thoughts, a sudden realization struck him. This wasn't just about a puppy, it was about something deeper, the reclamation of their humanity in a world that encouraged isolation. Lily continued to stare out her window, oblivious to the silent connection forming between her mother and the man whose decisions had unwittingly shaped their lives. But would her innocence remain untouched, or would the encroaching storm of change alter the fabric of their existence? As the light faded, possibilities began to swirl around them, beseeching even the hardest of hearts to reconsider their paths. But would this encounter lead to harmony or chaos? The moment approached, fraught with uncharted territory and emotional upheaval. Would they both be ready to confront what lay hidden beneath their respective ambitions? The air hung thick with anticipation as Michael took a steadying breath, gathering the resolve that had eluded him for years. "I've been thinking about your letter, Lily's letter," he started, his voice steady but softer than usual. "I realize there are things I can do to help, not just your family, but to embrace the broader humanity we've forgotten at work." Across the line, he sensed Sarah's breath catch, a small moment of disbelief mingled with hesitation. "And how do you intend to do that?" she asked, skepticism edging her tone. He paused, grappling with the truth of his aspirations. "I want to offer you a job, Sarah. Not just any job, but a position that empowers you to drive the changes we need. I believe you could help reshape our company culture into something more compassionate and understanding." Their worlds, the sharp boundaries of corporate hierarchy and the struggles of single parenthood tangled in that conversation like threads in a fabric. But Michael couldn't deny the faint glimmer of compassion blossoming inside him. After all, the business realm is merely a reflection of the people within it, he continued, understanding that he was at a crossroads. If we want profits that don't bleed out individual lives, the change has to start with us. Sarah's silence lingered, and he could almost feel the waves of her thoughts drifting across the line. Was this a genuine opportunity or another corporate maneuver cloaked in altruism? What's in it for you, Michael? She pressed, unwavering. Redemption, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. A chance to correct my past mistakes. To bring my own humanity back into the workplace. He could feel the weight of his words hanging in the air, heavy with both risk and promise. With Lily in mind, Sarah weighed his offer against her own survival instincts and dreams. And what makes you think I would trust you? You're the reason we're in this mess, aren't you? Her words hit him hard. He met her accusation, an even exchange of hurt and hope. I know I've caused pain, he acknowledged, his voice steady. I want to change, but I can't do it alone. I believe you possess the insight to guide our efforts. I also believe giving Lily that puppy means giving her something good to hold on to. It could bring hope amidst the uncertainty. The seconds stretched into minutes, the rhythm of their lives intertwining as they navigated the emotional landscape between them. Sarah took a breath, the air sharp with mixed senses of anger and yearning. They both stood at the precipice of an opportunity in exchange that could either heal or break them further. With each passing moment, she recognized a potential ally in the man who stood at the helm of her recent misfortune. What do you expect of me? She questioned, her voice firm. To lead and to inspire, he answered, invigorated by a sense of purpose he hadn't felt in years. Together, we can create a space where employees feel valued and families feel secure. But this requires vulnerability on both our parts. As the conversation deepened, the lines blurring between their professional roles and personal desires, Michael realized that this was about transcending their individual hardships. It was about building a bridge from the pain of lost lives to the hope for something better. Meanwhile, Lily sat perched at the windowsill, steeped in her own vivid dreams of joy and companionship, unaware of the transformative dialogue unfolding between her mother and the man she had once only viewed as a faceless adversary. The innocence of childhood held tightly against a reality shifting like quicksand, the reality that her wishes might carry more weight than anyone had known. Would Sarah accept the offer and embark on the daunting journey towards a new life? Would Michael be able to relinquish his burdens and evolve into the leader he yearned to be? As both grappling with their distinct motivations, neither could predict the ultimate outcome of their evolving relationship, entangled now by fate and a little girl's earnest wish for joy. What they didn't know was that their meeting would set off a chain of events that would unearth buried desires and long-forgotten ambitions, leading them to confront not just each other, but the ghosts of their pasts looming ever closer. The path ahead was uncertain, fraught with emotional revelations and difficult decisions. But neither could turn away from the pull of what lay just beyond the horizon, beckoning them to step into the unknown and confront what they thought they feared most. It was only the beginning, and the future loomed like an open book, awaiting the next chapter of their intertwined destinies. Would they seize the opportunity, or would fear ensnare them as they faltered? Michael hung up the phone, his heart racing as he processed the magnitude of the conversation. He stared blankly at the walls of his office, once a fortress of solitary ambition, now filled with doubt and hope. This encounter with Sarah had peeled back layers of his carefully constructed armor, exposing an urgency to not only redeem himself but to genuinely connect with those around him, something he'd buried under corporate strategy for too long. He shuffled through his emails, the screen filled with reports and financial forecasts, but the letters blurred into insignificance. Each data point felt lifeless, detached from the pulse of humanity he so desperately sought. Realizing that change required action, he brought his focus back to Sarah's hesitant voice. Trust, he knew, that would be the cornerstone of their collaboration, but how could he earn it? The next step twisted in his mind like a restless flame. He recalled their past encounters filled with tension, the moments where conversations had been little more than transactional exchanges. This time, however, he envisioned something different. He considered hosting an informal meeting with employees, a roundtable designed not around profit margins but open dialogue. Maybe here, in this vulnerable setting, the weight of his past decisions could shift into a collective mission towards goodwill. As Michael began to draft the meeting agenda, a familiar whirlwind of self-doubt whirlpooled in his stomach. Would they see him as just another leader from the corporate tower, or could he truly transform into a source of guidance? He queried the professionals surrounding him, those names only recognized by numerical value. Could they share their stories? He needed to create a space where they felt emboldened to voice their experiences, aspirations, and fears. The very stories that shaped them were the ones that could spark the change he envisaged. In the following days, he reached out to Sarah again, sharing his thoughts about the meeting. She responded with cautious support, her voice tinged with curiosity. "Let us not forget, Michael," she emphasized, the challenge hanging heavily in the air, "that trust isn't built overnight. Your authenticity will be scrutinized, don't expect it to be welcomed with open arms." Her words cut sharply, but they also ignited a determination within him. Trust was not a currency to trade but a fragile seed that required nurturing. He began to reflect on his qualities that could instill trust: transparency, humility, and accountability. Each principle required action, and he would demonstrate his commitment candidly, showing up not just as a figurehead but as a relatable human being laden with flaws just like everyone else in the room. He settled into a new rhythm of intention, researching struggles in workplace environments, seeking stories of upliftment from those who had faced adversity. Each narrative he uncovered haunted him in unexpected ways, igniting an empathy he had long ignored. He began documenting these stories, recognizing the profound impact they could have when shared among colleagues. Meanwhile, Lily's enthusiasm for her puppy grew, a symbol of the change rippling through their lives. He thought about her innocence, untainted by the weight of corporate decisions, and how much she would thrive in an environment where kindness reigned supreme. As the day of the meeting approached, anxiety knotted in his chest. Was he prepared for the emotional honesty he would elicit? How many layers of defensiveness lay beneath the surface? Would Sarah be willing to be vulnerable alongside him? Michael stood before the mirror, rehearsing his words, assessing the vulnerability flickering across his features. This could either dismantle the barriers that divided them or reveal just how ingrained his failings were. But deep down, an exhilarating truth pulsated within him. This was the moment where his stagnant professional identity could transform into a narrative of redemption. The clock ticked maddeningly, its steadily approaching hands amplifying the urgency. He had stepped into unknown territory, no longer leading by fear or control, but by connecting, reaching out. And just when he thought he could steady himself for what lay ahead, a fresh wave of apprehension surfaced. He realized he wasn't just confronting his colleagues, he was confronting himself, the shadows of arrogance and self-preservation that plagued his ethos. As Michael walked into the conference room on that brisk morning, the flickering fluorescent lights overhead felt both oppressive and electrifying. Would this be the opportunity to break free from the chains of his past? Could he finally embrace the deeper connections that had eluded him? The moment had arrived. He inhaled deeply, reminded that fear could either paralyze or propel, and he was ready for whatever awaited him. But hidden in the back of his mind lurked an unwelcome thought: what if some of his colleagues, emboldened by their experiences, weren't ready to forgive or accept him? As he stepped to the front, the unmistakable realization thudded within him: this was only the beginning of a reckoning, and the true test of change was about to unfold. Would he possess the strength to face the inevitable confrontation? As the meeting commenced, Michael's gaze swept across the room, landing on the mixed expressions of curiosity and skepticism etched into the faces of his colleagues. Conversations buzzed in soft murmurs, but once he acknowledged their presence, silence settled like a heavy fog. Each individual bore the weight of their own stories, experiences that Michael was desperate to understand. But fear lingered, gnawing at him. Would they be willing to share? He cleared his throat, an attempt to gather his thoughts, yet the anticipation of their reactions mounted like a tight coil. "Thank you all for being here today," he began, his voice steadier than he felt. "This is not just a meeting, it's a conversation. One where we can explore not only what we do as a company, but who we are as people." As he unveiled the agenda, seeking openness over profit, connection over transactions, waves of tension rippled through the group. He could feel their eyes probing him, searching for his sincerity. Would they leave behind the past and allow this new path to unfurl before them? Or was he merely setting himself up for failure, a hollow promise in the guise of a leader? Suddenly, Sarah spoke up. "Michael, I appreciate the effort, but let us be real. We've been conditioned to view feelings as distractions in this business. Can you prove we are valued beyond just our roles?" Her challenge was sharp, penetrating the air with unspoken frustration that resonated deeply within Michael. This wasn't just about proving himself, it was about severing the chains of a culture that had bred disconnection. "I recognize that," he replied slowly, feeling the urgency of truth heavy on his tongue. "That's part of why we're here, to shift that narrative." Much to his surprise, others began to share, revealing snippets of experiences that he had seen only in fleeting moments. Rachel spoke of her struggle with burnout, tapping into a vulnerability that few had exposed before. Mark voiced his frustration with the prevailing competitive atmosphere that overshadowed collaboration among teams. As each story unfolded, Michael felt an emotional storm brewing within him. Their honesty shattered the shells he assumed were impenetrable. With each shared struggle, he unearthed layers of his own arrogance and fear, the very characteristics that had kept him from being a more present leader. Each revelation held a mirror to his own journey, forcing him to confront the parallels. When it came time for feedback, he felt a knot rise in his throat. What if the honesty he sought to inspire in these moments backfired? Could he honor their stories without overshadowing his own? "I need to admit," he started, hesitating. "I've failed you. I've prioritized numbers over people for far too long." The confession tumbled out, raw and unexpected, impacting the room like a tremor. He could sense the guarded expressions soften momentarily, revealing a flicker of recognition. But just then, the unexpected happened. A small voice piped up from the back of the room. It startled him, yet upon hearing the words, an avalanche of emotions rushed through him. "Mr. Williams," the girl bravely continued, her eyes bright with childlike innocence, "why should I believe anything you say? You're the one who got my mom fired. How do I know you won't treat us like that again?" Gasps echoed in the space, shock rippling through the ranks. Panic rose in Michael as he fought to maintain composure. The innocent accusation cut deeper than any critique he'd faced before. It was a direct confrontation with his past, forcing him to face the consequences of his actions that reached beyond the workforce into families. He felt the room's atmosphere shift as he realized this was a pivotal moment, not merely for him but for the company itself. "You're right to question me," he replied, the gravity of her words weighing onto his conscience. "And I wish I could take back the pain that decision caused your family. I can't change the past, but I want to take responsibility and begin earning your trust and that of every person in this room." As he spoke, Michael sensed a new potential stir within him. The confrontation ignited something he had long buried, the urgency to connect and to rebuild trust, not just with his employees but with himself. The words hung there as every set of eyes regarded him with newfound scrutiny, curiosity igniting a flicker of hope. Michael understood that the path ahead would be challenging, fraught with the echoes of past mistakes and persistent fears, but this was the real beginning, the road to healing. Determined, he inhaled sharply. Could he muster the courage to pursue this personal transformation? As the room swirled with unspoken possibilities, he realized the true test didn't lie solely in his authenticity, it lay in whether he could rise to the occasion time and again, proving himself worthy of the faith they might grant him. But just as he prepared to navigate this new chapter of his growth, the flicker of doubt ignited again. The meeting had opened a dialogue, but what if too many scars lingered, too many wounds unaddressed within his colleagues? As uncertainty loomed overhead, he knew the courage he'd mustered would soon be tested further, and the journey towards genuine connection had only just begun. Would he have what it took to transform both himself and the company he led? The minutes that followed felt impossibly stretched, an awkward silence overtaking the room. Michael's heart raced, each beat echoing the weight of the little girl's words. He was suddenly acutely aware of every breath, the subtle rustle of fabric, the cautious movements of his colleagues as they awaited his next words. The atmosphere was thick with uncertainty, yet another realization dawned on him: he had stumbled into an unexpected moment of vulnerability, a rare opportunity to forge an authentic connection. He felt an involuntary shiver of regret as he recalled the decisions of his past, the cutthroat maneuvers that had secured his rise but shattered lives in their wake. No longer insulated by the sterile walls of corporate rhetoric, he stood inching closer to a deep-seated truth: change began not just in the boardroom but in the hearts of each individual. As the silence lingered, he made a decision. Rather than gloss over his mistakes, he would confront them head-on. "I can't promise that what I did before was right. It was wrong, and the consequences were far-reaching. But I'm here to show you, more importantly, to show myself that I can learn from those mistakes." The sudden shift in his tone caught the room's attention. Colleagues began to lean in, some even exchanged glances, weighing the sincerity of his intentions against the ghosts of their shared past. Before he could continue, Sarah nodded. "That's a start, Michael, but what's next? Words alone won't change anything. What if we held regular sessions? A safe space to air grievances or share ideas, so we ensure everyone's voice is valued here," he proposed boldly, surprising himself with the conviction in his voice. "Here's the thing," Mark added, looking directly at him. "It's not just about talking. It's about action and commitment. When things get tough, will you stick to this? Or will you revert to the old ways?" Michael took a moment to gather his thoughts. The truth was evident: it wasn't enough to make a promise in this setting, it required consistent follow-through. "I will commit to meeting with you all individually as well," he said, a pulse of determination thrumming through him. "I want to understand what you need from me, and I need to take ownership of how I can contribute positively to this team." With each assertion, he saw facial expressions shift from skepticism to curiosity. Here was an avenue towards a shared experience, a common ground that both he and his colleagues could tread together. He felt the warmth of possibility creeping in, wrestling against the pervasive unease that threatened to bind them all. "Let us begin this process together, starting today," Michael proposed, challenging them to step beyond the uncomfortable truth they all navigated. "We can discuss fears, dreams, expectations. Nothing is too small or insignificant. I want to ensure this company feels like a cohesive network of support." It wasn't perfect, and he knew it wasn't enough to instantaneously mend all wounds, but it was a start. A thread woven into the fabric of change. Was it possible to reshape the corporate tapestry they called home? As the meeting began to rekindle with ideas and suggestions, he felt a flicker of motivation. Perhaps they would manage to create an environment that valued compassion over competition. And yet, another shadow loomed at the edge of his conscience. Could he withstand the personal challenges this commitment would inevitably invoke? His breath caught as he caught himself in a moment of clarity: rebuilding trust wasn't a linear path. It demanded relentless reflection and perhaps digging up secrets that might feel excruciating to confront. He felt spurred on by a newfound resilience, a willingness to delve deeper. But as the discussions rolled on, another thought surfaced piercingly: how many more surprises awaited him, complications that would test the limits of his intentions? Could he withstand the weight of the past while still moving forward? With this question echoing painfully in his mind, Michael braced himself for the journey ahead. The complexities of transformation were vast, and he was only just beginning to understand the depth of their implications. The real challenge lay in the depths of personal accountability, which would soon become a battleground of its own. What awaited him as he pressed forward into his commitment to growth? More importantly, who would ultimately emerge from the shadows of the past, Michael or the version of himself he'd hoped to leave behind? The following days were a blending of anxiety and determination for Michael as he navigated the uncharted waters of his new role as a leader committed to real change. Each morning, he found himself standing before the mirror, staring into the reflection of a man fraught with uncertainty, yet driven by an unfamiliar resolve. Gone were the days of confident corporate posturing. Now, he was faced with the weight of vulnerability and authenticity, a realm he had long avoided. Inviting his colleagues for individual meetings was both thrilling and terrifying. Each conversation offered a glimpse into their experiences, stories tinged with hurt, disillusionment, and moments of quiet hope. During one such meeting with Elena, a junior project manager, he was struck by her candor. As she spoke about the constant stress of deadlines and the demands that left her feeling invisible, he sensed an opportunity for genuine connection. "Michael," she said, her voice trembling slightly, "it feels like our voices haven't mattered for a long time. How can you promise things will change?" The question hung in the air, painted with both challenge and a desperate plea. Michael hesitated, the old instincts to deflect or offer corporate jargon clawing at him, but he suppressed them. "You're right," he admitted. "I can't promise that change will be instant or perfect. I can only commit to being here to listen, to learn, and to grow alongside all of you." In that moment, he realized the true essence of leadership wasn't just about making promises but about fostering a culture of trust, one that did not shy away from the past but embraced it as a foundation for growth. Each meeting laid bare the fractures in the team's morale, and with each revelation, he unearthed potential that had lain dormant for too long. But with each uplifting conversation came the inevitable pang of self-doubt. As he returned to his office after a particularly empowering session, he found himself grappling with the shadow of his former self. Was this newfound angle of vulnerability a facade? Could he genuinely lead a team that had suffered under his previous decision-making? The specter of his past choices loomed large, whispering that he might revert to old habits when the going got tough. In an effort to solidify his commitment to this new culture, he organized a team workshop. This would be a space for collective brainstorming, a forum where ideas and grievances could be shared in a constructive manner. The challenge lay not only in putting together an effective agenda but also in instilling a sense of safety, ensuring everyone felt secure enough to share openly without fear of repercussion. With several hours spent developing the framework, Michael noticed a change within himself. The more he pondered how to create this safe space, the more he unearthed hidden aspects of his leadership style, his capability for empathy, his hunger for collective growth, and even a latent talent for facilitation. It was as if these buried attributes were emerging from the depths of his insecurity, pushing forward a new narrative, one anchored in understanding rather than authority. The day of the workshop arrived, marked by palpable energy and an undercurrent of guarded optimism. He stood before his team, ready to unveil the promise of this new approach. As he laid out the agenda and encouraged an open dialogue, a mix of excitement and trepidation coursed through him. He watched his colleagues, once careful and withdrawn, begin to engage with each other. Ideas bounced around the room, laughter broke through the tension, and for a fleeting moment, he sensed the possibility of a genuine transformation blossoming. However, amidst this newfound vibrancy, Michael couldn't shake the feeling that something was lurking just beneath the surface, a confrontation he hadn't anticipated. The question of what it meant to be held accountable weighed heavily on his mind. Would the team embrace this pivot, or would they, over time, revert to the cynicism that had colored their interactions for years? As the workshop progressed, one voice broke through the collective discussion, drawing his attention. It was Mark again, brow furrowed, eyes sharp. "What if we can't trust this shift? How do we know you won't backtrack to old ways the moment the pressure mounts?" The room fell silent, every gaze landing on Michael, and in that moment he felt the weight of every unsaid word press upon him. The challenge was clear: he had to confront the specter of doubt that loomed over him and prove that this was not just a fleeting phase. As doubt mingled with resolve, he sensed a turning point at hand. Would he rise to the occasion, or would fear drag him back into the confines of his former self? The impending confrontation with his own fragility loomed ever larger, threatening to dismantle everything he'd worked to construct. His vision of revival hinged on the choice he would make next. What truths lay buried, waiting for the moment to be revealed? And could he maintain his commitment as the specter of his past loomed ever closer? The silence that enveloped the room after Mark's pointed question felt suffocating to Michael. Every breath he took felt laden with the weight of expectations, both his own and those of his team. He had sought to cultivate a culture of openness, yet here stood Mark, a living embodiment of doubt, threatening to unravel his carefully crafted vision. How could he assure them of his sincerity in this transformative journey when he himself was still navigating the stormy seas of uncertainty? Steeling himself, he took a deep breath and addressed the gathering. "Thank you for your honesty, Mark. Trust is not given, it's earned. I know I've broken that trust in the past. It's going to take time and actions to prove I mean what I say." His voice echoed in the silence, a gentle determination piercing through the tension. He saw nods of acknowledgement around the room, but the flicker of mistrust still danced in Mark's eyes. Michael's heart raced. It was time to confront the specter of doubt. "Let's turn this around," he suggested. "How about we lay our cards on the table right now? What can I do to show you I'm serious about leading differently?" After a moment of hesitation, Elena chimed in, "Transparency would help. If we know what you're dealing with, we can understand the pressure you're under too." A flicker of an idea lit within Michael. "You're right. How about I share my own professional development goals, my struggles and my victories? This isn't just about leadership, it's about creating a two-way conversation." As the workshop progressed, he realized that unveiling his own vulnerabilities could forge deeper connections with his team. He recounted his journey of personal growth, detailing missteps, frustrations, and even small triumphs. Sharing how he, too, feared failure allowed a crack in the veneer of authority he had always shielded himself with. Responses came quick and heartfelt. Questions flew in rapid succession, prompting Michael not only to reflect but to realize that his fears mirrored the hesitations of his colleagues. Their vulnerabilities slowly unraveled, revealing solidarity in the shared experience of striving for purpose amidst disillusionment. Yet, deep within, Michael ambled through a thick fog of conflicting emotions. While the atmosphere had shifted, inching towards validation, doubt nagged at the corner of his mind. Would this communal moment be enough to bridge that divide of skepticism? He hadn't shed that specter, it lurked behind every interaction, cautioning him that despite this progress, every decision would still be scrutinized. The workshop culminated in a more practical discussion. "Let us define what accountability looks like for us," he encouraged, seeking to ensure this wasn't merely a figment of newfound freedom but a tangible set of expectations. Differences in perspective manifested with remarkable clarity, each colleague offering insights that reflected their experiences and hopes. Beneath the surface, however, he could sense the underlying currents of fear that change could evaporate when challenges arrived again, and he could feel his own fear reflected back at him. By the end of the session, Michael found himself standing before his team, feeling unexpectedly buoyed by the candidness shared. Yet he couldn't escape the conviction that they would be watching him closely in the days that followed. They needed more than just assurances, they craved concrete steps towards true change, steps that he had yet to define. As the workshop concluded, lines of thought crossed his mind, veering uncomfortably towards a sense of urgency. He needed to devise a plan not just for accountability, but to embrace the discomfort that accountability would inevitably bring. The next weeks would demand fortitude beyond what he had anticipated. Just as the team began to disperse, a small voice piped up from the back of the room. It was Emma, the intern who had been notably quiet throughout the session. "What if we just want you to be our real leader?" she spoke innocently but directly. The room froze. Michael's heart raced once more, he understood the implications of her words. It was time to reflect deeply on who he was becoming. Would he measure up to their expectations, or was he heading toward another fall from grace? The moment hung in the air, a chilling reminder that this journey involved not just his development, but theirs as well. As he locked eyes with Emma, a new fear settled in. The reality of what it meant to lead washed over him, leaving him grappling not only with the responsibility of his new role but also the burden of authenticity. Could he elevate himself to meet their expectations, or would the past sabotage his resolve? One final question flickered in his mind. What would it mean to truly embrace this new leadership style when faced with temptation at the first sign of pressure? In the days that followed the workshop, Michael felt the weight of his promise bearing down on him with relentless pressure. Each sunrise served as a reminder, a subtle push urging him to define those elusive steps toward accountability and transparency. He strove to churn through the fog of uncertainty surrounding him, grappling with his fears as he navigated the dense landscape of leadership. The challenging dichotomy between his internal struggle and external expectations became clearer. He found himself frequently returning to Emma's questioning gaze, echoing in his mind like the insistent chime of an alarm clock. What did it mean to be a real leader? Would authenticity manifest as a series of polished speeches, or would it require something deeper? Determined to take decisive action, Michael scheduled a series of small group sessions with his team members to gather insights on their perspectives on leadership. He believed that understanding their needs could inform his own development. But as he prepared for the first meeting, doubt crept in. Would they regard him as a temporary figurehead, a flickering light that could easily fade? He entered the meeting room with a pulse of hesitance threading through him. Recognizing the mix of anticipation and skepticism on his colleagues' faces, Michael steeled himself and initiated the dialogue around his own vulnerabilities. "I've made mistakes in the past, truthfully, I'm still figuring things out," he stated, his voice betraying the anxiety he felt. "But I want to hear how you perceive leadership and what qualities you need from me." As participants began to share their thoughts, Michael's trepidation slowly transformed into a keen curiosity. Insights emerged, weaving a tapestry of hope and need. Some spoke of valuing decisiveness in challenging times, while others craved compassion during moments of strain. Yet underneath their words lurked an unspoken fear, a hesitance to trust his intentions fully. The specter of his past actions loomed as they revealed their raw honesty. Midway through a poignant discussion, Carlos spoke up, eliciting Michael's interest. "It's not just about you being different, Michael. We need to see evidence of change. Trusting someone doesn't happen overnight, especially when history is there to haunt us." The room fell silent, a palpable tension intertwined with understanding. Michael felt a knot of frustration. Carlos was right, but how could he manifest change when the very foundation of his leadership was still shaky? After the session, Michael sat alone with his thoughts, pondering a path forward. There was a growing sense of urgency now, a need to align his internal growth with the expectations laid before him. To do this, he knew he needed a tangible framework for accountability that he could share with his team. What principles would define his leadership beyond mere platitudes? As the days turned into a whirlwind of meetings and planning, he started drafting a formalized leadership model, one that emphasized vulnerability, courage, and shared responsibility. Yet, as he filled page after page with his thoughts, an unsettling question remained: would he follow through when the stakes were high, or slip back into the ways that once defined him? Deep down, Michael understood that he had to commit to the changes he discussed, or risk shattering the fragile trust he was attempting to build. He circled back to Emma's innocent request, wrestling not only with how to meet their expectations but also with the essence of his very self. Pledging to remain genuine, he found himself increasingly drawn to the notion that perhaps leadership wasn't just about an image to uphold, it was about navigating the treachery of one's own fears. As he finalized his thoughts, a surge of determination washed over him, and with it came clarity. He decided to introduce the leadership model in the next meeting, promising to uphold those principles even in moments of strife. However, a question lingered in the corners of his mind, gnawing insistently, when the pressure came. Storming in, would he falter, or could he hold on to the integrity he sought to build? With the clock ticking down to the meeting, anxiety coursed through him once more. Perhaps being a leader meant embracing this intricate dance between vulnerability and resolve, a delicate tightrope walk he had yet to master. As he prepared, his phone buzzed with a reminder of the impending meeting, and he realized with mounting dread that the true challenge awaited him: how to inspire trust in the very moment doubt threatened to unravel it all. Would this meeting be the turning point? Would they rally behind him or withdraw even further? As the day of the leadership model presentation dawned, a blend of anticipation and trepidation filled the air, vibrating with possibility. Michael stood before the mirror, brushing aside the remnants of doubt. He had drafted a framework that emphasized vulnerability, shared responsibility, and the importance of fostering trust within their corporate culture. He visualized the faces of his colleagues, recalling the conversations that had opened doors to healing and growth. This moment marked not only an opportunity for him but also a potential turning point for the entire company. When he entered the conference room, he was met with a mix of familiar skepticism and cautious curiosity. Their eyes, a spectrum of emotions, demanded transparency and accountability. Michael took a deep breath and felt grounded by the weight of his aspirations. "Thank you all for being here," he began, his voice steady, yet infused with sincerity. "Today, I'd like to share a leadership model I've developed, one that reflects not only my commitment to change but also the expectations you all have articulated." He outlined the principles of the model, detailing how each component aimed to create an environment where every voice mattered, where struggles were met with understanding, and where accountability would be a collective endeavor. As he spoke, fragments of doubt still lingered in the back of his mind. Was this enough? Was he truly ready for this transformation? But then he looked into the eyes of his colleagues, recalling their stories, their fears, and the innocence of Emma's call for a real leader. It galvanized him. He finished his presentation, his spirit fueled with the passion of shared purpose. Silence hung in the air as he awaited their response. The moment of vulnerability had arrived. Slowly, Mark raised his hand. "I appreciate your willingness to lay it all out there, Michael," he said hesitantly. "But now the real question is, how do we know you will hold yourself accountable? What is your plan for sticking to this model when the pressure mounts?" Michael felt the gravity of the moment weigh down on him, the specter of his past loomed large once again. But he was prepared. "I will hold myself accountable by regularly interacting with all of you, seeking feedback, and implementing check-in sessions. This will not be a one-time performance. I ask for your partnership in this journey." The room began to stir. Elena leaned in, curiosity flickering in her eyes. "Will you commit to transparency about your struggles too? It can't be just one-sided." Nodding, he replied, "Absolutely. This model isn't about perfection, it's about learning together. If I stumble, I will share those experiences too. I want us to build something that we can all benefit from, not merely survive within." An electrifying tension escaped the confines of doubt, replaced by a hesitant hope. Gradually, heads nodded, agreement blossoming like flowers in springtime. The discussions began to flow, ideas flew back and forth, and colleagues voiced their hopes for a future where each of them would thrive rather than just survive. As the meeting progressed, it became clear that genuine connection amongst them began cultivating something wholly new, an underlying bond woven through shared adversity and collective aspirations. As laughter interspersed the dialogue, Michael felt a buoyancy wash over him, a sensation of belonging and understanding he had long yearned for. But amidst this warmth, a subtle caution remained. He understood that true transformation would rely not solely on their collective acceptance, but on his unwavering commitment to authenticity. Days folded into weeks, and every interaction Michael had with his team reinforced the tenets of his new leadership model. He began implementing feedback sessions based on mutual accountability, where not only complaints were aired but also triumphs celebrated. The team flourished as they brought fresh ideas to the forefront, their voices no longer muffled by fear but empowered through collaboration. Yet, with all that success came an unforeseen challenge. Pressure began mounting from upper management, reminding him of the corporate structure that still sought profit over people. It cast a shadow over the momentum he had built with his team. One afternoon, after a tense meeting about quarterly goals, Michael found himself at his desk grappling with the internal conflict, the needs of the business versus the needs of his employees. He could see the path he'd walked toward responsible leadership, yet he felt the fracturing tension of expectations. Would his resolve hold firm in the face of demands that might lead him back to his old ways? As he pondered, a soft knock broke through his reverie. It was Sarah, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "You're not going back to corporate ways, are you?" she asked, her eyes piercing through to his very intention. "No," he replied, but the uncertainty in his voice didn't go unnoticed. "You have to stand firm. Remember, the reason you're seeing this change is that you are willing to reflect on your past mistakes. Don't let pressure sway you. Your authenticity is what drives this." Her words resonated deep within him, reorienting his focus. In that discussion, a renewed spark emerged. There were still thoughts of defection and fear, yet as he gazed out into the swirling possibilities brought by his team, he encountered a new resolve. He returned to the workspace with a mission to convey unwavering commitment to both his staff and his integrity. Michael organized a company-wide meeting, initiating a discussion reinforcing their collective values. He reiterated that their commitment to each other was the cornerstone of their success, a success that transcended quarterly profits and connected them on a human level. As that meeting unfolded, he felt a renewed surge of confidence. They exchanged ideas, outpourings of creativity igniting from every corner of the room. In expressing a shared vision, he witnessed tangible transformation, a collective shift toward a culture that honored not just productivity but also humanity. When it was time to revisit their model, the team stood together, unfamiliar bonds forged through collaboration. As they finalized the key components, each touchpoint strengthened the realization of growth: concrete, authentic, and interdependent. Later that month, amid remarks from the corporate board evaluating their progress, Michael received encouraging feedback from the higher-ups about the increased synergy, the rise in morale, and the renewed passion for innovation within the team. Testimonials from employees poured in, a tangible testament to their rights as individuals being honored. Yet alongside these accolades, doubt still whispered at the periphery of his mind. Whenever the corporate structure began to reverberate with the remnants of his past tendencies, he reaffirmed to himself the importance of remaining vigilant, committed to cultivating the transformations they fought for. Through his journey, Michael finally understood the essence of true leadership. It wasn't about holding a title, it was about navigating the complexities of relationships, fostering trust, and standing firm in the face of temptation. It meant not just acknowledging one's past but embracing the courage to reshape what lay ahead, determining to be a real leader, not simply constrained by the specter that loomed behind him, but empowered to pave the way for a vibrant future. As he watched his team flourish, he recognized two wins emerging from this experience: one not merely defined by corporate success but by the authenticity that transformed numbness into connection. That day, a sense of accomplishment surged through him. He had achieved something profound. Not just in the boardroom but also within himself, amidst a rolling landscape of uncertainty, he had conquered the inner turmoil that long haunted him. Standing at the threshold of newfound identity, Michael beamed with satisfaction, recognizing that they had indeed built something special together. They had not only adjusted to the future's unexpected turns. They had created a new path grounded collectively in trust, hope, and the promise of a brighter tomorrow. But as he took a moment to absorb the journey, he felt the weight of responsibility settle back onto his shoulders, firm yet tender. The real challenge lay ahead. Would the foundation hold against the trials yet to come? Would they all continue to thrive now that they were no longer confined by old beliefs or practices? Only time could tell. In that essence, he turned to the vibrant mosaic of experiences surrounding him, a testament to their growth, realizing that this was a new beginning, a momentous shift towards living out their values, making lasting impacts on one another, and reminding Michael each day of the importance of authentic connection. He embraced the challenges ahead, for they would only serve to fortify the bonds forged in the fires of transformation. Thus, the journey continued, a testament to every step shared with courage, a reminder that within the trials of leadership lay the most profound moments of achievement and understanding. Now, it is your turn to take action. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories that will inspire your journey. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. It truly makes a difference to share these powerful transformations. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion to their own transformations. This is the moment to stand together and uplift those around you. Don't wait even one more second to support this message.